In talking about the spiritual gifts of humility this morning, I want to begin by speaking of an artist who was anything but humble, an artist who took the world by storm, and I think you will recognize the name, the Russian ballet dancer Rudolf Nureyev. There's been a new biography written about him. It's just come out by Julia Kavanaugh. According to Kavanaugh, Nureyev was not a nice man. Now, that would be an understatement. He was a brilliant dancer, but a total narcissist. Now, on the plus side, Nureyev broke some rules that needed to be broken. He defected from the Soviet Union and freed himself from the artistic constraints of communism. He introduced a new, more androgynous style of dancing for males, modeled on female dancers, as opposed to the strong, solid look that was customary in those days. And he had such a passion for the dance itself, and he brought such aliveness and sexual magnetism to the stage that he was frequently described as an animal, a kind of primeval force. The height of his artistry came in his partnership with the great ballerina Margot Fonteyn. She was 42 and ready to retire when they met. He was 23. He brought new life to her, however, and for the next decade, nothing could touch the work that they did together. It was at this time that the general public discovered ballet, and people began lining up to buy tickets. This pair would receive 20 or 25 curtain calls. Were they lovers? Some say yes, others no. When you see tapes of their work, at least on stage, yes, they were making love. Nureyev was a beautiful, gifted creature. Yes, he was, but he believed that he himself was the source of all his giftedness, and therefore it followed that others should bend to his every whim. Sexually, he did what he wanted, with whom, at any time, and any place. He repaid his earliest and most important teacher by having an affair with the man's wife. Nureyev dropped ballerinas on the floor. He threw dinner plates. He screamed at Fonteyn. He once tore his costume to shreds in front of 50 press photographers because he thought the costume made his legs look too short. He insisted that choreographers redo classical ballets so that he could have more time on stage. He hated to rehearse, so he would often show up just a few days before a performance to learn his part. He regularly took members of a ballet company to a restaurant and never paid a penny, nor even left a tip. As one of his older female followers explained, and he always had lots of older female followers, one of those explained, well, what Rudolph gave you was himself. Okay. The constant touring took its toll, and his body began to show it. His life was harder, and he was lonely. His sexual life became what he could pick up in bars or clubs or baths. In 1984, he was diagnosed HIV positive. At this time, he was the artistic director of the Paris Opera Ballet. By the time he left the company, he was quite ill, and yet he would go wherever he was invited to dance. China, Japan, wherever. At one point, he was dancing with a catheter inside his costume. At times, he would lurch through performances. He could not understand that he was dying. At the time of his death, he had begun discussions with the mayor of St. Petersburg to open a ballet school in Russia. He was 54. A great artist, but a tragic figure as a human being. So this man who gave the world so much somehow could not move from that early narcissism, a way of being that characterizes so many of us. I mean, all of us probably to some extent when we're young and we're finding ourselves. He could not move to something more mature, spiritually speaking. The word humility would not have much meaning to Nureyev, I expect. That would be for lesser beings, not a God like himself. But the problem is that we are not gods, not any of us. And when we think we are, we get in real trouble. We humans have limits, and we need to recognize those limits. Aging helps, and the inevitable losses that time brings. You know, some orders of monks greet each other with the phrase, memento mori, or remember you're dying. That's a little different from the ubiquitous, have a nice day. But this greeting is not designed to be morbid, it's designed to be enlivening. It's only, you see, when we are pushed up against our very human limits that we can understand that this day, this moment, is all that we have. And so we had better make it good. Humility is not a characteristic that is supported by our popular culture. I mean, think about it. We're supposed to compete, to win, to be the best. All of our children, as Garrison Keillor says, are above average. And what is that scripture in Matthew 5 that is so difficult to understand? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The meek? Who wants to be meek? Now today, that word means submissive or lacking in courage. And the meek certainly are not inheriting the world. No, sir, sir. But now let's go back to the original meaning of that word. The Greek might better be translated as gentle, respectful, patient. It's the opposite of boastful and arrogant and aggressive. And listen to the next 4 verses. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. What is that quality that is expressed here? It's an openness of heart, a longing for peace and goodness and reconciliation, not winning, not being the best, not having the most. No wonder in our culture, which is an aggressive culture, with the prize going to the strongest, no wonder that this scripture seems to be confusing at best.